War is chaos, but even chaos has rules, or so we like to believe, because sometimes the enemy isn't across the border, sometimes it's already home. This is the story of a city that looked up to the sky, saw familiar planes, recognized familiar insignia, and still didn't know it was about to die. This is the day Germany accidentally bombed itself. In 1940, Nazi Germany believed it had mastered modern warfare, blitzkrieg, precision bombing, perfect coordination between pilots, navigators and commanders. The Luftwaffe was marketed not just as an air force, but as a scientific instrument of destruction. Efficient, calculated, relentless. Errors were for weaker nations. Mistakes were not part of the narrative. And yet, on May 10th, 1940, something went catastrophically wrong. The city of Freiburg in Breisgau sat calmly in southwestern Germany. No front lines, no air raid sirens, no reason to panic. It wasn't a military hub. It wasn't an industrial target. It wasn't supposed to matter. Civilians went about their day, students, shopkeepers, families. And, above them, German pilots took off on a mission. Their orders were clear. Bomb the French city of Colmar. Navigation in 1940 was, well, fragile. No GPS, no satellites, only maps, compasses, dead reckoning, and visibility. That morning, visibility was poor. Cloud cover distorted landmarks. The Rhine River looked unfamiliar from altitude. Distances felt off. Somewhere over southern Germany, the bomber formation drifted. Not drastically, not enough to raise alarms, just enough. And then a city appeared below. Church spires, dense rooftops, urban layout. The pilots believed they were over France. They were wrong. At 3:58 in the afternoon, bombs were released. High explosive payloads tore through neighbourhoods. Homes collapsed instantly. Streets ignited. Glass turned into shrapnel. There were no air raid sirens, no shelters prepared, no warning. Civilians ran, not from enemies, but from their own air force. Children died. Entire families were buried. Buildings burned in minutes. By the time the planes disappeared into the clouds, 57 people were dead. Over 100 were wounded. And Freiburg was in ruins. At first, officials blamed France. It was convenient, believable, useful. State newspapers reported an enemy attack. Public anger was redirected outward. But there was a problem. Fragments of bombs were recovered. They were German, serial numbers, manufacturing marks. The truth leaked upward through the bureaucracy. The Luftwaffe had bombed Freiburg. Germany had attacked Germany. The Nazi regime understood something immediately. This wasn't just a military error, it was a symbolic disaster. The myth of infallibility, the image of total control, had cracked. So the response was swift. Reports were censored. Families were discouraged from speaking. Details vanished from public records. No apology, no acknowledgement. Instead, silence. The dead were buried quietly. The story was buried deeper, and officially the bombing of Freiburg never happened the way it actually did. Here's where things get uncomfortable, because historians still argue about one question. Was it truly a mistake? Some point to navigational errors, weather conditions, inexperienced crews. Others suggest something darker, miscommunication. rushed orders, a breakdown inside a system obsessed with speed over accuracy, and a few, well, they whisper about internal pressure. The Luftwaffe was desperate to prove itself. Commanders wanted results. Targets mattered less than action. When systems value performance over precision, mistakes don't just happen, they're manufactured. For the people of Freiburg, the damage wasn't only physical. Trust, well, it shattered. How do you feel safe when the threat wears your own uniform? How do you grieve when you know you're told not to talk? Survivors lived with a secret trauma, one that just didn't fit the heroic war narrative. And for Germany as a whole, this incident exposed something profound. Total control is honestly an illusion. Even the most disciplined war machine can, in the end, turn its weapons inward. Freiburg wasn't alone. Throughout history, powerful states have accidentally, or perhaps conveniently, harmed their own people. Friendly fire, training accidents, miscalculated strikes, and each time the response follows a pattern. Minimize, redirect blame, control the story. Because, you see, admitting vulnerability is more dangerous than the mistake itself. So here's the question that refuses to go away. If this could happen in one of the most tightly controlled regimes in history, what does that say about modern warfare? About automation? About speed? About systems that honestly move faster than human judgment? And, more importantly, how many similar stories were never uncovered? How many were erased before they could be remembered? On that day in 1940, the sky didn't care about flags. Bombs didn't recognize borders, and ideology offered no protection. Freiburg learned the hard way that power doesn't always point outward. Sometimes it collapses inward, and when it does, the truth is often the first casualty. Because history isn't just written by the victors, it's edited by them.